RACROX.
It's almost that time of year again. It's finally E3 season. I've been waiting all year because this is my Christmas. Getting to see all the new announcements and being overcome with hype, and oh, it just gets me so excited. But before we can properly talk about the future of games, we need to take a look at the past. Last year was polarizing to say the least. For some, it was a bleak time filled with disappointment and regret. For others, it was a bountiful year full of titles that made us smile from ear to ear. For me though, I'd say only a couple of games last year really outright disappointed me. For the most part, last year was pretty solid, certainly better than 2016, and there were even a handful of games that really knocked it out of the park for me. There were more than 5, yes, but I feel like if I tried to stretch the list to 10, the first couple entries would be games I found enjoyable, but not totally fitting to be on the best games of the year list, so I'll keep it to 5 this time around, with some honorable mentions at the end. Now, I wanted to make this list at the end of last year, but I realized I hadn't really gotten to play all the great games of 2017, so I've taken my time to indulge in games I may have missed out on. If I'm honest, I still haven't played them all, but I'm confident that the list I have contains my top 5 games, and I don't think they're going to beat these ones out for me, even if I do play them down the line. Now, if you've been keeping up with my videos, you probably already know what 2 of the entries will be, and I imagine it wouldn't be too hard to guess a third, but half the fun comes from the order after all, so why don't we stop wasting time and get into it. Shit. Yeah, real original, I know. I can already feel the walls closing in on me from both sides. At the end of the day though, Breath of the Wild was a damn good experience. I finished after roughly 2 weeks of non-stop playing, getting every shrine, every memory, way more Korok seeds than I ever needed, and so many rushrooms. I didn't stop playing until I felt confident I'd explored every inch, and while traversing the expansive world took time and sometimes felt a bit tedious, I was always having fun. The reason this game isn't higher on the list is while it is an incredible game, I did have some issues that basically boil down to 2 things. Nintendo was so caught up in fixing open world problems, they lost sight of a couple gold standards along the way. Just for instance, the game could have benefited from an on-call horse you can access anywhere, and I would have liked to see the merchant trading system take a page from Bethesda's book, where you can make all your transactions in one big move. The second thing is, I wish we could have seen more traditional Zelda dungeons. The Divine Beasts were cool, but I never felt immersed like I did when exploring a huge labyrinth filled with puzzles in the older games. I'd love to see the next game reduce the shrine amount, maybe by taking away those repetitive test of strength shrines, and replace them with more classic, expansive dungeons. For my minuscule gripes though, the pros far outweigh the cons, and Breath of the Wild is still amazing from start to finish. I could say a lot of good things about this game, about how it fixes so many problems with the open world fatigue that's so prevalent today, or how its open-ended formula breathes new life into the series. And maybe one day I will, but for now, we move on. It might seem weird basically choosing a set of games from the late 90s as an entry for one of the best games of 2017, and I can understand that point of view. If you feel for that reason Crash shouldn't be on this list, then feel free to imagine I placed Breath of the Wild in the 4th spot and added in Uncharted Lost Legacy into spot number 5. But for all of us out here that love Crash, this game is, well, I've already put it in the best words I can, a shining beacon of hope. I've already talked about that aspect of the game though, so instead I'll tell you about the immense amount of fun I had from both cruising through the main campaign campaigns, as well as grinding my teeth all the way to 3 shiny platinum trophies. Now there's a part of me that has a real weakness, a love really, for how the PS1 games look, specific things about the jaggy aliasing or the wobbly textures. And that part will always love how the original Crash games looked, but the Sane trilogy really does bring my childhood imagination to life, fleshing out all the potential without compromising the core game. I had a blast taking a trip down memory lane before absolutely killing myself in the relic challenges for those plats. Not platinum relics, just platinum trophies, which ironically only required getting every gold relic, but dang dude, even that was hard. I'm not much of a trophy hunter anymore, especially when it comes to games I know are gonna rough me up pretty bad, but for Crash I made an exception because those plats are badges of honor to a PlayStation veteran like myself. The game kicked my ass left and right, but I kept coming back because finally getting those relics and having a level down to a science felt amazing. As remakes go, this is as close to perfect as I've seen. The added time trials, along with other additions like fully playable Coco and the new voice work, only enhance an already fantastic set of games, and as much as I'll always love the originals, I'd say the Sane trilogy is now the definitive way to experience these games. Oh fuck, I wrote it though. The only wildcard entry on this list for me, Horizon Zero Dawn surprised me by being an extremely fun game with an incredibly engaging narrative. I call it a surprise because Guerrilla has never been too high on my radar when it came to developers, even among just the Sony devs. I was never too big on Killzone. Resistance was my PlayStation FPS of choice. Hell, I've still never put the Killzone 3 disc into my PS3 despite getting the game the year it came out and enjoying the multiplayer beta when I first played it, which made it all the more surprising when Horizon came out of the gates blazing after an already strong marketing campaign, a rarity when it comes to Sony. When they bother to market games, they can do great things, but when it comes to new IPs, good luck getting the marketing needed to push it. And then it proceeded to almost immediately be crowned one of the best games on the PlayStation 4. Not a game to get because you already have a PS4, but a game to get a PS4 just to play, like Uncharted 4 and Bloodborne. A lot of comparisons were made about this game, equating it to Monster Hunter meets Metal Gear meets Witcher 3. And it even sparked a bit of a rivalry with Breath of the Wild as they both came out close to each other. An undeserved rivalry, I'd say, because despite being open world and, I don't know, having hunting, these games went for very different things. What needs to be said though is that this game is amazing on its own merits alone. I was completely enthralled while playing. The combat was fluid and fun, the enemies were varied and provided a lot of threat and challenge even when facing some of the lower to mid-tier ones. And the boss monsters were always a thrill to take down. On top of which was a fantastically executed story that blended a revenge plot with saving the world from destruction. And the Chosen One thing never felt shoehorned in even after the Metal Gear Solid level plot twist near the end. Aloy felt like a realistically written character, and I appreciated that while certain dialogue options let you pepper in your playthrough with some agency, they never made her feel like a shell player insert character. Aloy was always very much Aloy. Add in the incredibly dense world lore and some great supporting characters, and I had a game I didn't want to put down, sacrificing so many hours of sleep just to see what the next bit had in store. The game also had a fairly obtainable platinum trophy, and I liked the game so much that I decided to nab it. Wow, I just realized all the games on this list are games I 100%ed, or at least in the case of Breath of the Wild, games I 100%ed to the best of my ability without going crazy over 900 fucking Korok seeds. But I think my willingness to go the extra mile and see through all the content these games have to offer is a testament to how good they are. And speaking of games I had a compulsion to complete, Now, as I mentioned, if you've been following along, it was always obvious what my top 2 games of 2017 were going to be. I've already talked about both of them in great amounts of depth, and I'll be sure to link the videos in the end card if you haven't seen them and want more insight into my thoughts on these titles. Both A Hat in Time and Super Mario Odyssey are games I'll treasure in my heart forever, but as for the top spot of 2017, well, there can only be one. Can I get a drum roll? Maybe like a Mario Party winner style motion graphic? Yes, the winner is A Hat in Time by Gears for Breakfast, and there is a very simple reason for this. Last year we saw a lot of 3D platformers. Some were a long time coming, while others we only knew about for a year or less prior to their release, and in the end it was all about expectations. Yooka met my expectations, but didn't exceed them. I knew exactly what I was getting with that game. Sonic Forces failed to meet my expectations. The bar wasn't exactly sky high, yet it still managed to miss the mark. Crash gave me exactly what I wanted, a preserved but now stunning time capsule. Mario Odyssey subverted my expectations. At nearly every turn, Odyssey had me stunned, in awe of how they would toy with my emotions towards both 3D Mario games and 3D platformers in general. But Hat in Time? Hat in Time took my expectations and blew them out of the water. From the expertly satisfying gameplay, to the level design, to the clever writing and memorable characters, to the stellar music and just all that charm. Everything fusing together to make one of the most unforgettable experiences in my many years of gaming. And I really don't mean to sell Odyssey short. It's an absolutely incredible game as well that's also going to stick with me for years. But I knew that going in. Hat in Time is a game I knew I'd like, but not this much. I said it before, and I'll say it again. Gears for Breakfast and everyone involved, they deserve a gigantic round of applause. Before we go, I'd like to give some honorable mentions to these games up top. Hot Shots Golf, as always, is a guilty pleasure of mine I can never not have a good time with. I thoroughly enjoyed the new features, even if I was remiss that the classic outlandish characters were gone in favor of the character creator. I dug my teeth into it real hard and got all the way to top level, having fun climbing all the way up the ranks. Also, I refuse to call it by its other name. It's always going to be Hot Shots in my heart. Uncharted Lost Legacy provided a fantastic story with 2 of the series' previously underdeveloped characters, and it did some really cool things with its open concept design for its major chapter. So much so I'd like to talk about it in other smaller open hubs and games more at length in a later video. Hive Swap was an awesome point-and-click adventure game that helped to expand the Homestuck universe, but what was truly impressive to me was how basically every item had a unique interaction with every object in the game. I spent hours just seeing how many Pog jokes I could get out of Joey. The show might be a mixed bag, but Steven Universe Save the Light was actually an incredibly fun Paper Mario-inspired RPG that mixed the action commands of the original Paper Mario games with the active time battle system of Final Fantasy for some of the most engaging turn-based combat I've seen since Thousand Year Door. Still sucks I couldn't play as Lapis though. Speaking of making turn-based games fun, Mario + Rabbids Kingdom Battle was quite the pleasant surprise. I've never been much of a tactics guy myself, but this game may have changed my tune with its robust and super fun movement system. The writing was also super charming. Bowser Jr. made for a great villain, and dare I say it, I think I like the Rabbids now. So yeah, 2017 was definitely a peculiar year for games, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. And soon we'll get to see what the big dogs have in store for us in the future at E3, and ooh boy, I'm hyped for that. And even 2018 seems to be finally shaping up with both big and small releases like God of War and Swords of Ditto, and titles coming down the line like Spider-Man, Red Dead, and I feel like I'm forgetting one.